Zach Ertz was one of the best fantasy tight ends for years. It was he was basically right behind Travis Kelce for a number of years. George Kittle was usually up there. 1 or 2 years he had. Um, I don't know. Did you have Gronkowski in there somewhere? Maybe he was the best 1 or 2 of those years. But basically, Zach Ertz for about 5 seasons was just a money draft pick. You took him in the 12-team league. If Kelsey comes off the board, then people are like, I think should I get Ertz? Maybe get Ertz 4th round, 5th round at the latest. There's a lot of pressure to, if you want to get elite tight end, there weren't a lot to choose from. And the consistency was what was so appealing. What's interesting to me is that, and it's rare this happens, in the NFL, where someone can, get older, clearly be on the decline, and then suddenly have his best season in years. And that's Zach Ertz in Washington. When he was traded from the Eagles to the Cardinals, it was a big move. Eagles, knew what they were doing. And they had a great tight end, Dallas Goedert, and Ertz, was going to help Arizona, compete for the Super Bowl. Cause I think back then Arizona, I think they started out, I forgot, 7-0 or something like that season. Um, it didn't work out, obviously. And, now last year he's in Washington and he has a resurgence. Who knew? I could not have expected that he had like 90 targets, as a 34, 35-year-old, with a rookie quarterback, which I'd love to do some research on rookie quarterback and tight end kind of, dynamics and whether rookie quarterbacks, one theory is, oh yeah, they lean more on the short passing and high percentage stuff. Well, maybe. It would be interesting to know, but if that's the case, then yeah, it made sense, that Zach Ertz did as well as he did. He beat out, Ben Sinnott, John Bates, not names by any stretch. Although Sinnott was he fourth round pick, 2nd round pick. Yeah, it's like a 2nd round pick, last year, 2nd round rookie. And Zach Ertz still, was the guy. In fairness to Ertz, he was hurt for a couple seasons, and that definitely, marred his, progress in terms of stats and all that. But, last year seemed like a fluke in a way, except that if we remember how good Zach Ertz was, we can say, he's still talented. If Travis Kelce could do it at 35, why can't Ertz do it at 34? My concern now is when you look at ADPs, and this has to do with, um, I do this a lot, just cross positions. If there's a tiebreaker, the tiebreaker goes to the younger guy. For me, almost always. And in fairness, there's probably several tiebreakers. Offensive, prowess of the team, how wide a gap between that player and the next player in the depth chart, things like that. But age matters. And so what I want to talk about for a few minutes is why would we draft Zach Ertz? So right now his ADP, as of this recording which is, 2 days before it's airing, full disclosure, Zach Ertz, his ADP is, TE 18, he's the 18th ranked tight end. And he might go up one as they likely, got hurt. So he might drop a little bit. And, so you might see Ertz go up to 17. And then you have Brenton Strange at 20, Kyle Pitts at 21. I hesitate to bring up Kyle Pitts, but I'm not giving up on him. You got Mason Taylor, the rookie, for the Jets at 27, which seems very odd. Dalton Schultz at 28, Elijah Arroyo, where, Seattle, unloaded Noah Fant, and Arroyo might be the guy now, or he's, going to come into his own probably at some point this year. There's several guys there in the top 20 to 29 that are younger and arguably have higher ceilings than Zach Ertz. And yet Zach Ertz's ADP is better than all of them. And so I would challenge you all to think about if you were in a deep league, let's say a 14-team league where someone like Ertz might be drafted, where a few managers are picking a second tight end right off the bat. Why would you do it? And if you're doing it because you're saying, well, his chemistry with Jaden Daniels is fantastic, and he had like 650 yards, 7 touchdowns. I mean, look what he did. Well, the touchdowns are not always replicable from year to year. I mean, I can buy into the yards. I can buy more into yards per target, where yards per target is somewhat consistent over time and somewhat predictable, but you don't know what's going to happen in the red zone from year to year. And you don't really know how many targets a guy like Zach Ertz is going to get. He had the most targets that he's had in a season since 2021, and the second most since 2019. Again, injuries held him back, in fairness, but still 91 targets for a 34-year-old tight end is highly unusual. They've added Deebo Samuel, which may or may not be the kind of impact that 3 years ago we might have thought it could be, or even 2 years ago. Um, but I just, given the choice between Ertz and a younger tight end, I cannot rationalize jumping to Ertz. I can't rationalize going with someone who, at his best, will probably be as good as we saw last year. And on that, he's not someone that I would want to start every week, unless he's scoring touchdowns at a clip that he was last year of almost, one every other game or one every, 2.5 games. That's pretty good for a tight end, obviously. But again, we can't bank on that. I'd rather bank on the upswing of a player, that a rookie or a second year or, a young guy, and Pitts comes to mind again, playing in a contract year, who might play at a higher level. I'd rather roll the dice on that than just settle for a guy like Hurts. That's it. If you have other feedback on it, I look forward to hearing from you. You can email me at fantasyfootballcorners@gmail.com, comment on the Facebook page. I'm obviously wrong a bunch of times on this stuff, and Ertz could be, great again. I just want you all to think about a guy who was the number 2 target on his team last year and had the success he had. Can we really expect that he's going to be number 2 in targets in Washington again this year? And if that 91 targets reverts to something more like 60 to 70, then who the heck would want to draft him? And I think that's the question. If you really think he's going to be the number 2 guy, have at it. But that's a big risk to take, on a team where, the running game is adequate, but Jaden Daniels' legs are even better. And he only threw 480 passes last year. That might be a lot of what we see again. To bet on a tight end in a low passing attack offense who's 34 going on 35 does not make sense. I'm BJ Riddell. Follow me on the blog. We'll see you tomorrow.